Captain Jake Morrison stared at the display screen on the bridge of the UES Wanderer. 3 years into humanity's first deep space mission, and they still hadn't found anything more exciting than dead rocks and gas clouds. His crew was getting restless, and honestly, so was he. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Pete Garcia from the communication station. His voice had that edge it got when something interesting was happening. "It's not natural. Definitely artificial." Jake straightened in his chair. "What kind of artificial?" "Distress signal, I think. But it's not like anything in our databases. The pattern is all wrong for human tech." Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her science station. "That would make it the first sign of alien technology we've ever encountered. Are you sure it's not just interference?" Pete shook his head. "I've run it through every filter we have. This is definitely a signal, and it's definitely not from Earth." Jake felt his heart rate pick up. First contact. Every human who'd ever looked at the stars had wondered about this moment. Now it was actually happening, and he had no idea what to do. The instruction manual back on Earth had plenty of rules about making contact with alien civilizations, but they all assumed the aliens would be the ones trying to talk to humans. "Where's it coming from?" Jake asked. Amy Johnson, their engineer, pulled up a star chart. "About 6 hours away at current speed. It's coming from near that asteroid field we were going to survey tomorrow." "Change course," Jake ordered. "And, Pete, keep monitoring that signal. Tell me if anything changes." The next few hours crawled by. Jake found himself pacing the bridge, checking and rechecking their approach. What if the aliens were hostile? What if this was some kind of trap? What if they were too late to help? That last thought bothered him more than the others. Someone was in trouble, and human or not, Jake couldn't just ignore a distress call. "Visual contact," Amy announced. "Holy! What is it?" Jake asked, moving to look over her shoulder. On the screen was a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It was sleek and curved, almost organic looking, like it had grown instead of being constructed, but it was clearly damaged. Pieces of hull were missing, and strange fluids leaked from several breaches. "Life signs?" Lisa asked, running her scanners over the alien vessel. "Definitely alive in there. Multiple contacts, but they're weak. Whatever happened to them, they're not in good shape." Jake made his decision. "Amy, bring us alongside. Pete, try to establish communication. Lisa, prep the medical bay. We're going to help them." "Sir," Pete said carefully, "we don't have any protocols for this situation. Maybe we should contact Earth first?" "Earth is 27 light years away," Jake replied. "By the time we get an answer, whoever's on that ship will be dead. We'll deal with the paperwork later." Pete managed to establish a basic communication link using mathematical concepts. The aliens' computer systems were more advanced than human technology, but they used the same basic principles. It took 2 hours, but finally a voice came through the speakers. "Please," the voice said in heavily accented but understandable English, "we are dying. Our ship fails. Our people suffer. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Wanderer. We want to help you. Can you understand me?" There was a long pause. Then, "Human? We know this word. Your people are new to space, yes? Why do you offer help to strangers?" Jake frowned. That was an odd question. "Because you need help. That's reason enough." Another pause, longer this time. "I am Kethmore, elder of the remaining Zephyrians. We flee from those who would destroy us. Our homeworld is gone, our ships are failing. We have traveled far seeking sanctuary, but all doors closed to us." "What happened to your world?" Lisa asked. "The Dominion Empire came. They said our people were impure. They poisoned our oceans and burned our cities. We who escaped carry only memories and grief." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Genocide. These people were refugees, running from mass murder. "How many of you are there?" 47 souls remain of 10 billion. Soon, we fear, there will be none." The bridge fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew. Amy had tears in her eyes. Pete was staring at his console. Lisa was already pulling up medical data. "Kethmore," Jake said, "we're going to dock with your ship. My people are going to come aboard and help fix whatever's broken. My doctor is going to treat your injured, and then we're going to figure out where to take you to be safe. Captain Morrison, you cannot. Our biologies are different. Our technology is incompatible. Our needs are not your needs. Help would be impossible. We'll make it possible, Jake said firmly. That's what humans do. The docking process took 6 hours. Amy had to completely rebuild their docking collar to match the alien ship's systems. Lisa worked with the Zephyrians' medical officer to understand their biology. Pete learned enough of their language to help coordinate the rescue effort. When Jake finally stepped aboard the alien vessel, he was struck by how beautiful it was, even damaged. The walls curved like ocean waves and soft blue lights provided gentle illumination. The Zephyrians themselves were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that reminded him of dolphins. They were also clearly dying. Their life support was failing. Their food supplies were contaminated and several were badly injured from whatever battle had damaged their ship. We will not live to see another star, Kethmore told Jake sadly. But we thank you for your kindness in our final hours. Nobody's dying on my watch, Jake replied. Amy, start working on their life support. Lisa, set up a treatment area. Pete, help coordinate supplies. For the next 18 hours, the human crew worked alongside the Zephyrians. Amy somehow managed to connect human power systems to alien technology. Lisa developed treatments for alien biology using human medical supplies. Pete organized food distribution, making their rations stretch to feed 47 extra mouths. By all logic, none of it should have worked. The technologies were incompatible. The biology was completely different. The language barriers should have made coordination impossible. But somehow, it all worked anyway. When the crisis was over and the Zephyrians were stable, Kethmore approached, Jake with something like wonder in his large eyes. Captain Morrison, in all my years I have never seen such things. Your people make impossible things become possible. You look at problems that cannot be solved and solve them anyway. This is not normal behavior in the galaxy. Jake shrugged. We just did what needed doing. Any decent person would have done the same. Kethmore stared at him for a long moment. No, Captain. They would not. What you have done here today will be remembered. The galaxy will hear of the humans who refuse to accept defeat. Jake didn't know it yet, but those words would prove more prophetic than anyone could have imagined. 3 weeks after rescuing the Zephyrians, Jake Morrison thought the excitement was over. The UES Wanderer was escorting the alien refugees to a safe system when Pete Garcia started receiving strange messages. Captain, you need to see this, Pete said, his voice filled with confusion. I'm getting communications from all over the galaxy. Dozens of different species, all asking the same question. What question? Jake asked, walking over to the communication station. They want to know if the stories about humans are true. They've heard we help the Zephyrians, and they want to know if we really make impossible things happen. Lisa looked up from her science station. How did word spread so fast? We're months away from any major trade routes. Kethmore, who had become something of an unofficial ambassador, spoke up from where he was learning to use human computers. The Zephyrians have many friends among the persecuted peoples. We have secret networks, ways to share information that the Dominion cannot stop. News of your kindness has traveled far. Jake frowned. What exactly are they saying about us? That humans are different, Kethmore replied. That you look at impossible problems and solve them anyway. That your presence makes things work that should not work. The stories grow with each telling. Before Jake could respond, Amy called out from her engineering station. Captain, we're receiving a priority distress signal. It's close, maybe 2 hours away. Jake sighed. Let me guess. More refugees? No, sir. This one's different. The signal is massive, like it's coming from something the size of a moon. When they arrived at the source of the distress call, Jake understood why the signal was so strong. Floating in space was what looked like a crystalline city the size of Earth's moon. It was beautiful, with towers and spires that caught starlight and threw it back in rainbow patterns, but something was wrong with it. It's moving, Amy said, studying her readings. That whole structure is drifting toward that radiation storm. Lisa pulled up more detailed scans. The radiation levels in that storm would kill anything biological. If they can't change course, everyone on that structure will die. Pete established communication with the crystalline city. The beings who answered called themselves the crystalline hive. They were silicon-based life forms who thought and acted as one collective mind. Their home had been pushed out of orbit by gravitational anomalies, and they were drifting helplessly toward the cosmic storm. "We have calculated all possibilities," the hive's voice said through the speakers. "There is no solution. We will enter the radiation field in 47 hours. Our civilization will end." "How many of you are there?" Jake asked. 12 million individual units comprise our collective. We have existed for 8,000 of your years. Soon we will exist no more." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew of 12 humans was supposed to save 12 million aliens using a single exploration ship. The math was impossible. "What would it take to push your city out of the storm's path?" Amy asked. "The energy required would be equivalent to your sun's output for 3 days. No known technology can generate such power. We have accepted our fate." Amy was already running calculations. "Captain, what if we used our fusion drives, not to push them directly, but to create a gravity well that could alter their trajectory?" Lisa shook her head. "Amy, our entire ship couldn't generate 1% of the power they need. It's physically impossible." "Maybe," Amy said. "But what if we tried anyway?" Danny Walsh, their new communications officer who had joined them at the last supply station, was monitoring dozens of frequencies. "Captain, I'm picking up something interesting. There are ships converging on this location, lots of them. Different species, all asking if they can help." Jake looked at the tactical display. Sure enough, dozens of alien vessels were approaching. From all directions, ships he didn't recognize, flying under flags he'd never seen. "Who are they?" Jake asked. Kethmore studied the identification signals. "Species that have heard the stories. The gentle gardeners who grow food for hungry worlds. The star dancers, whose ships are works of art. The silent watchers who rarely speak to anyone. They come because they believe humans can work miracles." "We can't work miracles," Jake said firmly. "We're just people trying to help." "Perhaps," Kethmore replied. "But they believe, and belief has power." What happened next defied every law of physics Jake knew. Amy coordinated the rescue effort, positioning the human ship and dozens of alien vessels around the crystalline city. Their combined fusion drives shouldn't have been able to move something so massive, but somehow it worked. The gravitational fields created by the ships didn't just add together, they multiplied, creating an effect far greater than the sum of their parts. The crystalline city slowly, impossibly, began to change course. "This is not possible," Lisa said, staring at her instruments. "The energy readings don't make sense. We're generating 100 times more force than we should be able to." Dr. Matt Collins, a xenobiologist who had requested transfer to the Wanderer after hearing about their first contact, was documenting everything. "Captain, I think we need to consider that something fundamental is happening here. The laws of physics seem to be flexible around human operations." The rescue took 18 hours. When it was over, the crystalline hive was safely out of the radiation storm's path, and Jake was left staring at sensor readings that made no scientific sense. "How did we do that?" he asked Lisa. "I don't know," she admitted. "By every calculation I can make, we should have failed. The energy requirements were impossible to meet, but we did it anyway." The crystalline hive's gratitude was overwhelming. Their collective voice filled the communication system with thanks and wonder. "You have done the impossible," they said. "You are the reality shapers, the ones who make false things true through will alone." "We just did what anyone would do," Jake insisted. "No," Kethmore said quietly. "What anyone would do is calculate the impossibility and give up. What humans do is try anyway. This is why the stories spread. This is why entire species now speak your name with reverence." Danny Walsh looked up from his communication station. "Captain, I'm receiving messages from 47 different star systems. They're all asking the same thing." "What?" They want to know if humans will come help them too. Word is spreading faster than we can travel. There are species out there who have given up hope, and now they're hoping again because they've heard about us. Jake sank into his captain's chair. They had come out here to explore empty space and maybe find some interesting rocks. Instead, they were apparently becoming the galaxy's emergency rescue service. Sir, Pete said carefully, some of these messages are unusual. There are references to the human miracle and the ones who deny reality. A few species seem to think we're some kind of divine messengers. That's ridiculous, Jake said. We're just people doing our jobs. Maybe, said Dr. Collins, studying his data. But the universe seems to disagree. Our success rate is statistically impossible. Food supplies that should run out don't. Repairs that should fail work perfectly. Solutions that shouldn't exist keep appearing. Either we're the luckiest people in history or something else is going on. As the Wanderer prepared to leave the system, escorted by grateful alien ships, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that their quiet exploration mission had become something much bigger and much more complicated. He was right to be worried. Across the galaxy, in hidden corners and refugee camps, in slave colonies and forgotten worlds, people were beginning to whisper about the humans, the ones who made miracles happen, the ones who never gave up, the ones who might just save them all. 2 months after the Crystalline Hive rescue, the UES Wanderer approached Nexus Station, the largest trading hub in the galaxy. Jake Morrison had hoped to negotiate sanctuary for the growing number of refugees following their ship, but what he found waiting for him was far more complicated. Captain, Danny Walsh said from his communication station, I'm reading over 300 ships around the station. That's 5 times normal traffic. What are they all doing here? Jake asked. Pete. Garcia was monitoring the chatter between ships. Sir, they're talking about us, about humans. Some of these species have traveled for months to get here. Dr. Kate Sullivan, their new chief medical officer, looked up from her medical bay reports. Captain, I need to show you something disturbing. I've been analyzing our recent missions and the numbers don't add up. Jake walked over to her station. What do you mean? Our food supplies. According to my calculations, we should have run out of rations 3 weeks ago. We're feeding 47 Zephyrians plus our own crew. But somehow our storage bays still show adequate supplies. Lisa frowned from her science station. That's impossible. Matter can't just appear from nothing. That's what I thought too, Kate continued. But it's not just food. Medical supplies that should be exhausted are somehow lasting longer. Replacement parts that we used are still showing up in inventory. Either our counting system is completely broken, or something is making our resources stretch beyond physical possibility. Dr. Matt Collins looked up from his research. It's not just resources. I've been documenting our success rate on technical problems. We've attempted 67 repairs that should have failed according to standard engineering principles. All 67 worked perfectly. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying we're breaking the laws of physics? I'm saying the laws of physics seem to bend around us, Matt replied, especially when we're helping others. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from Nexus Station. The station commander, a reptilian being called Sektar, appeared on their screen looking nervous. Human vessel, you are requested to dock immediately. There is a situation that requires your attention. What kind of situation? Jake asked. The kind that might start a war if not handled carefully. Please, Captain Morrison. Many lives depend on your presence here. When the Wanderer docked at Nexus Station, Jake found himself facing something he never expected. The massive station's central plaza was packed with representatives from dozens of different species, all waiting to see the humans. Captain Morrison, Sektar said as they walked through the crowds, your reputation has grown beyond anything I have seen in my 40 years as station commander. These beings have traveled from across the galaxy. They bring stories of your people. Jake looked around at the gathered aliens. Some he recognized from previous encounters, but many were completely new species. They all watched him with expressions ranging from hope to something that looked like worship. What do they want? Jake asked. To see if the stories are true, to ask for help. to understand how humans make impossible things happen. Sektar paused. And some have come to stop you. As if summoned by his words, a group of heavily armed figures in black armor pushed through the crowd. Their leader, a tall humanoid with pale skin and cold eyes, stepped forward. "I am Commander Vex of the Dominion Empire," he announced loudly. "These humans are to be arrested immediately for crimes against natural order." The plaza fell silent. Jake felt his crew tense behind him. "What crimes?" Jake asked calmly. "Violation of physical laws, disruption of established galactic order, spreading dangerous ideas among inferior species." Vex's voice carried across the plaza. "Your very existence threatens the stability of the galaxy." Kethmore stepped forward from the crowd. "The humans have committed no crimes. They have only shown kindness." "Kindness that defies reality," Vex replied. "Our scientists have analyzed your actions. The probability of your success rate is impossible. You somehow make failing technologies work. You stretch resources beyond their limits. You inspire hope in species that should know their place." Other voices joined the argument. Representatives from the species humans had helped began speaking up, defending them. Soon the entire plaza was filled with heated discussion. "Enough!" Sektar shouted. "There will be no violence on my station." Commander Vex smiled coldly. "Then, the humans will come with us peacefully, or we will take them by force." That's when Jake noticed something strange. The lights on the station were flickering, but not randomly. They seemed to pulse in rhythm with the emotions of the crowd. The air itself felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. "Commander Vex," Jake said calmly, "we're not going anywhere with you. These people need help, and we're going to give it to them." "You cannot. It is impossible. We have 50 ships surrounding this station. You have one. Surrender now or face destruction." Jake looked around at the crowd of aliens watching this confrontation. He saw fear in some faces, hope in others, and something that looked like expectation in many. They were waiting to see what the humans would do when faced with impossible odds. "Amy," Jake said quietly to his engineer, "prepare for emergency departure." "Sir, there's no way out. They have us completely surrounded." "We'll figure something out," Jake replied. "We always do." What happened next would be talked about in legends for generations. As the Wanderer prepared to leave the station, every system on the ship should have failed under the coordinated attack from 50 Dominion warships. Instead, something incredible occurred. The station's lights stopped flickering and began to shine brighter than ever. The Dominion ships found their weapons mysteriously malfunctioning at critical moments. Their targeting systems locked onto empty space while the human ship seemed to slip between their attacks like it wasn't quite there. But more importantly, the species gathered on Nexus Station began to act. Inspired by the humans' refusal to surrender, they rose up against their Dominion oppressors. Maintenance workers sabotaged critical systems. Dock workers opened the wrong airlocks. Security guards suddenly forgot which side they were supposed to be on. The revolution that should have taken years happened in hours. As the Wanderer escaped through the chaos, Commander Vex transmitted one final message. "This is not over, humans. Your influence spreads like a disease. Species that were content in their place now rebel. The natural order crumbles wherever you go. We will stop you." Back on the ship, Jake's crew was trying to understand what had just happened. "Captain," Pete said, "I recorded the entire event. The energy readings during our escape were impossible. It's like reality itself was helping us." Dr. Kate Sullivan was pale as she studied her medical scanners. "The biological readings from the crowd were unlike anything I've seen. Their brain activity was synchronized, like they were all thinking the same thoughts." "What thoughts?" Jake asked. "Hope, determination, belief that the impossible was about to become possible." Dr. Matt Collins looked up from his analysis. "Captain, I think we need to face facts. Something is happening around us that we don't understand. Our presence seems to alter probability itself. When we refuse to give up, reality finds a way to make our success possible." "That's crazy," Jake said. "Is it? Look at the evidence. We consistently achieve results that should be impossible. Resources stretch beyond their limits when we need them to. Technical solutions work when they shouldn't, and now entire populations are rising up just because they believe we can inspire miracles. As the Wanderer left Nexus Station behind, Jake couldn't shake Kethmore's words from earlier that day. Captain Morrison, my people have begun to pray to humans. They believe you are divine messengers sent to save the galaxy from despair. I told them this was foolish, but now I wonder. How do you explain what we have seen? Jake had no answer then, and he had no answer now. All he knew was that their simple exploration mission had become something far beyond their understanding. Across the galaxy, species were beginning to believe that humans could work miracles. The terrifying part was that they might be right. 6 months after the events at Nexus Station, Jake Morrison wished he could go back to the simple days of exploring empty space. The UES Wanderer now traveled with a fleet of refugee ships, and everywhere they went, Jake found evidence of something that made him deeply uncomfortable. "Captain, you need to see this," Danny Walsh said, his voice tight with concern. He was holding a tablet displaying intercepted communications from across the galaxy. Jake read over the messages and felt his stomach drop. "The Church of Human Defiance, are you serious?" "It's spreading across 17 star systems," Danny replied. "They've organized formal religious services. They have priests and temples. And sir, they're praying to us. To you specifically." Lisa looked up from her science station where she had been analyzing more impossible data. "What are they saying about us?" "According to this, you're the goddess of ingenious solutions. Captain Morrison is the first prophet. Amy is the saint of impossible repairs. The whole crew has been given divine titles." Jake felt sick. This is insane. We're not gods. We're just people trying to help. "Try explaining that to them," Pete said, monitoring incoming messages. "I'm receiving prayer requests from thousands of beings across the galaxy. They want us to bless their crops, heal their sick, and solve their impossible problems." Dr. Matt Collins, who had been studying what he now called the human effect, looked up from his research. "Captain, I've made some disturbing discoveries about what's been happening around us." "More impossible physics?" Jake asked. "Worse. I've been tracking our success rate over the past 6 months. When we act selfishly or for our own gain, we fail. At normal rates, but when we're helping others, especially when the situation seems hopeless, our success rate approaches 100%. Amy looked confused. "That doesn't make sense. Success should depend on skill and resources, not motivation." "That's what I thought too," Matt continued. "But the data is clear. The more hopeless the situation and the more altruistic our motives, the more likely we are to succeed against impossible odds. It's like the universe itself is rewarding human kindness." Dr. Kate Sullivan had been running medical scans on the crew. "There's something else. Our brain patterns have changed over the past months. We're showing neural activity that shouldn't be possible. And when we're in crisis situations helping others, our brain waves synchronize with each other and with nearby alien populations." "You're saying we're telepathic now?" Jake asked. "Not exactly. It's more like we're broadcasting something. Hope, maybe. Determination. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. And other species are picking up on it." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert from Amy. "Captain, we're receiving a massive distress signal. It's coming from the Sol system." Jake's blood ran cold. "Earth?" "Yes, sir. The Dominion Empire has assembled a fleet, 10,000 ships all heading for our home system. They're calling it the final solution to the human problem." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Dominion wasn't just trying to capture them anymore. They were going to destroy humanity entirely. "How long until they reach Earth?" Jake asked. "Based on their current speed, 72 hours, Amy replied. Pete was already working his communications board. "Sir, I'm sending word to every ship in our refugee fleet, and I'm broadcasting on all frequencies to every species that's helped us." "What are you telling them?" "That Earth needs help. That humanity faces extinction. That anyone who believes in hope and refuses to accept defeat should come to Sol system immediately." Jake shook his head. "Pete, we can't ask them to die. For us, 10,000 Dominion ships against whatever ragtag fleet we can assemble? It's suicide. Maybe, Pete replied. But since when do humans let impossible odds stop them? The response to Pete's message was overwhelming. Within hours, ships began converging on the Wanderer from across the galaxy. Not just the refugees they had helped, but military vessels from species that had heard the stories. The Gentle Gardeners brought their massive agricultural ships. The Star Dancers arrived with their fast attack craft. Even the Silent Watchers, who rarely interfered in galactic affairs, sent a squadron. By the time they reached Sol System, Jake's small exploration ship was leading a fleet of over 1,000 vessels. It should have been a magnificent sight, but Jake knew the math. 1,000 ships against 10,000 was still hopeless. "Captain," Kithmore said as they prepared for battle, "there is something you should know. My people have been in contact with Zephyrians across the galaxy. They have all stopped what they were doing and are praying for humanity's success. Not just Zephyrians, but dozens of species we have encountered. Millions of beings are focusing their thoughts on one thing." "What thing?" Jake asked. "That humans will find a way to win an impossible battle. That hope will triumph over despair. That the universe will not allow goodness to be destroyed by evil." Lucy Chen, their navigator, was studying the tactical display. "Sir, the Dominion fleet is enormous. Even with our allies, we're outnumbered 10-1. According to every military simulation I can run, we have no chance of victory." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy, helped him save countless lives, and somehow inspired an entire religious movement without meaning to. Now they were about to face the largest space battle in galactic history. "Lucy," Jake said with a small smile, "when has having no chance ever stopped us before?" As the human fleet moved to intercept the Dominion Armada, something strange began happening throughout the galaxy. On worlds where the Church of Human Defiance had taken root, beings gathered in unprecedented numbers. They prayed, meditated, and focused their collective will on a single outcome: the impossible victory of hope over despair. In the depths of space, reality itself began to take notice. The laws of physics, which had been bending slightly around human operations for months, prepared to bend much further. Probability itself was about to be rewritten by the collective belief of billions of beings who had decided that sometimes the universe needed a miracle. And if the universe wouldn't provide one, they would create it themselves through sheer force of will and absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Battle of Sol was about to begin, and with it, the final transformation of humanity, from explorers into accidental gods. Jake Morrison, who had started this journey wanting only to see what was beyond Earth's solar system, was about to discover that sometimes the greatest discoveries are made about yourself. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see if faith could overcome firepower, if hope could triumph over hatred, and if a small group of humans who simply refused to give up could somehow save not just their own species, but the very concept of compassion in a harsh universe. The answer would echo across the stars for generations to come. The Battle of Sol began exactly as every military expert predicted it would. The Dominion Empire's 10,000 ships opened fire on the human-led Alliance fleet, and by all laws of physics and warfare, the smaller force should have been destroyed within minutes. Instead, something impossible happened. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Wanderer as the first wave of Dominion attacks somehow missed their targets. Not because of superior piloting or defensive systems, but because the universe itself seemed to be playing tricks on the enemy fleet. "Captain," Amy called out from her engineering station, "their weapon systems are malfunctioning. The energy signatures are all wrong. It's like their own technology is working against them. Our shields are holding at impossible levels," Lucy added from navigation. "We should have been destroyed 3 times over by now, but somehow we're still here." Dr. Matt Collins was recording everything from his science station. "Captain, I'm reading energy patterns unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not coming from any ship in either fleet. It's coming from space itself." Jake looked at the tactical display and felt a chill. The battle wasn't following any logical pattern. Dominion ships would line up perfect shots only to have their weapons fire into empty space. Allied vessels that should have been destroyed were somehow slipping through enemy formations like ghosts. Most strangely, several Dominion ships had simply stopped fighting and were drifting with their crews apparently unconscious. "Pete, what are you hearing from the enemy communications?" Jake asked. "Confusion, sir. Their commanders are reporting equipment failures across their entire fleet. But it's not random. Every failure seems designed to protect us and our allies." "Sir," Danny Walsh interrupted, "I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Church of Human Defiance has organized simultaneous prayer gatherings on thousands of worlds. Billions of beings are focusing their thoughts on one thing." "What thing?" "The absolute certainty that humans will win this battle. That good will triumph over evil. That hope will defeat despair. They're not just praying, Captain. They're believing, with such intensity, that their combined will is affecting reality itself." As if to prove his point, the battle took an even stranger turn. A massive solar flare erupted from Earth's sun, but instead of affecting both fleets equally, it somehow channeled itself directly into the Dominion ships while leaving the Allied fleet untouched. "That's impossible," Lisa said, staring at her readings. "Solar flares don't target specific objects, they're natural phenomena." "Nothing about this battle is natural," Matt replied. "We're witnessing the largest collective act of will in galactic history. Billions of minds focused on the same outcome are literally rewriting the laws of physics." Commander Vex's voice came over the communication system, filled with disbelief and growing panic. "This is unnatural. Your very existence corrupts reality itself. You make the impossible happen through some dark power." Jake activated the ship's main transmitter so his response would be heard across both fleets. "Commander Vex, there's no dark power here. There's just people who refuse to give up hope, even when facing impossible odds. That's not corruption. That's what makes life worth living. You spread chaos. Before humans appeared, the galaxy had order. Species knew their place. The strong ruled the weak, and reality followed predictable laws. Now everywhere you go, the oppressed rise up. The hopeless find hope. The impossible becomes possible. You have broken the natural order." "Maybe. The natural order needed to be broken," Jake replied calmly. That's when the most incredible thing happened. Across the Dominion fleet, individual ships began switching sides. Not because of equipment failures or outside influence, but because their crews were making a choice. "Captain," Pete reported, "I'm receiving surrender transmissions from dozens of Dominion vessels. Their crews are saying they want to join the side that makes miracles happen." The domino effect spread through the enemy fleet like wildfire. Soldiers who had been taught that strength came from crushing the weak were seeing something different. They were watching a small group of humans and their allies achieve victory against impossible odds through nothing more than the absolute refusal to accept defeat. One by one, Dominion ships powered down their weapons and requested permission to join the Allied fleet. The crews didn't want to fight for an empire that represented despair and oppression. They wanted to be part of something that stood for hope and possibility. Within 6 hours, what had started as the Battle of Sol became the largest peaceful surrender in galactic history. The Dominion Empire's fleet didn't retreat. It converted. Commander Vex was one of the last holdouts, broadcasting increasingly desperate messages about maintaining order and fighting the human corruption. But even his own crew eventually voted to surrender. When the battle was over, Jake found himself in command of the largest fleet in galactic history. Representatives from hundreds of species requested permission to speak with him. They wanted to understand how humans had achieved the impossible once again. "Captain Morrison," Kethmore said as they prepared for the journey back to Earth, "you have done more than save your homeworld. You have proven that hope is stronger than fear, that compassion is more powerful than cruelty. The galaxy will never be the same." Jake looked out at the vast fleet of ships now flying under banners of peace instead of conquest. "We didn't do this alone, Kethmore. Every being who refused to give up hope, who chose to believe in something better, they're the ones who made this possible." 1 year later, Jake Morrison found himself in the strangest position imaginable. He was officially the first pope of the Church of Human Defiance, a religion that now spanned the entire galaxy. The Church's core teachings were simple: Help others whenever possible, never accept that problems are unsolvable, and when reality says no, try anyway. Dr. Lisa Parker had published her research proving that human influence had fundamentally changed the galaxy. The universe now had a measurable bias toward positive outcomes, but only when people genuinely tried to help each other. The effect grew stronger when multiple species worked together, and when the situation seemed most hopeless. The former Dominion Empire had been reorganized as the Galactic Alliance for Mutual Aid. Instead of conquering and oppressing, its mission was to spread hope and assistance to any species that needed help. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that the galaxy's former oppressors had become its greatest force for good. Jake received a message from Earth informing him that a new exploration ship was ready to launch. The UES Hope was crewed entirely by volunteers, who had no idea they were considered divine beings by trillions of aliens across the galaxy. "Should we warn them?" Amy asked, reading over his shoulder. Jake smiled, remembering his own confusion when he first learned about humanity's accidental divinity. "No, let them discover it the same way we did. Besides, the galaxy could use a few more miracles." As the Wanderer prepared for its next mission, Jake reflected on how much had changed. They had started as explorers looking for new worlds and had ended up as the center of a galactic religion. But the most amazing thing wasn't that humanity had become gods. It was that they had managed to do it without losing their fundamental decency. The galaxy was full of hope now, and that hope was contagious. Species that had been enemies for millennia were working together. Problems that had seemed unsolvable were being solved by beings who simply refused to accept that they were impossible. Jake Morrison had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest power in the universe isn't technology or weapons or even divine intervention. Sometimes it's just ordinary people who care about each other and refuse to give up, no matter how impossible things seem. And in a universe that had forgotten what compassion looked like, that might just be the most miraculous thing of all.